There, we're live.
Okay.
Joe Pross. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
Thank you, bro. I'm doing good, man. Just been running all over the place today.
Hey, so I messaged you, man, because I'm interested in hearing about your story. I know that you've already shared a little bit with me, um, but I know that you have a pretty powerful story, man. That will probably bless, somebody that is how you used to be, in that same situation. So tell us a little bit about your background, man. The your ex criminal history. Like how did that begin, or wherever you want to start, man.
Well, uh, okay. So yeah. So I mean, this is. I could tell you a little bit, about how I grew up, and
Okay,
that's definitely whatever I talk about. It's not really, who. It's not who I am anymore,
okay,
but it is who I was and how I grew up. And I don't condone any of it to nobody. I don't glamorize the lifestyle. I don't agree with none of the stuff that I used to be, but that's just how it was. So
right,
I grew up. I was born in LA, but I never lived there, and I grew up here in the border. From what I remember, I lived in Mexicali. My younger years, then we moved to El Centro, California, when I was like probably in kindergarten. So I
okay,
started going to school in kindergarten in El Centro. It was just me and my brother and my mom. I didn't have a father. Well, I mean, I did have a father, but I don't know where he was. Um, so I didn't grow up with him at all. It was just my mom and me and my brother. And then later on came my stepdad. And so we moved around a lot. He was a field worker, so we moved around from El Centro. I remember we moved to Stockton up north somewhere. Then we came back to Calexico. We moved in Calexico when I was like approximately in sixth grade. So that probably makes it around 13, I guess.
okay,
So in Calexico, being like my mom was always leaving with my stepdad, going places, taking them, and I would end up staying in Mexicali with my grandma, which I really loved a lot. And just me staying back home, going to Mexicali, and not really wanting to be at home, because I didn't grow up with much love at home. My mom never showed love. She does now. I mean, I guess in her own way, she probably did, but I never saw it. It was, constant beats. She would. I was bad, but I mean, still, she would beat me, and so that I didn't want to be at home. So when I was in kids that were always in the streets themselves, that either. So they were all in the streets. I was in the street hanging out. I was in Calexico from sixth all the way to ninth grade, and at some point, I guess at first, most of my life, I mean, as a kid, I would go to the stores and steal stuff. Steal magazines, steal toys. One time, I stole a BB gun. And I shot my neighbor with it. um, got in trouble over that. So and I loved Mexico. I always loved crossing that border. That was I would walk from my house to the border, get a cab or a bus, and I would drive right to my grandma's house. So the border was part of my life, always, since a kid. And from doing, travesuras, just getting in trouble by stealing and being in the streets late, and eventually that led up to one day. Somebody offered some money, if they're like, hey, there's somebody wants to cross a car, with some weed in it, and they're giving so much
hey,
money.
how old were you at this period?
That well, I was 17.
Okay, you were 17. Wow, okay.
Yeah, at 17, that was when I drove my first car across the border with weed.
And before that, you were not involved in any of that type of activity, correct?
What was Can you? I can't hear you.
I said that before that, were you involved in any of that type of activity?
Nah, I wasn't involved in anything but stealing. You know, I would steal in the stores, toys, candies, magazines, but I was not into any gang banging. I wasn't a cholo. I wasn't a gang. You know, I didn't belong to no gang. But that when that offer came to cross that and get money, I mean, who doesn't want to have money? You know, at that age and listening. You know, I grew up listening to rap, hip hop. Back then, it wasn't as bad as it is today. But you know, I grew up on that and música en español, you know, and corridos and stuff. But
Hey, bro, rap used to be pretty bad, man, with NWA, and all that type of.
oh yeah, no. But I'm talking about when I was a kid, bro. When I was a kid, I'm talking about Fat Boys. I'm talking about maybe
Or like Run
that
DMC, like Run
Run
DMC.
DMC,
Oh,
yeah, you know, El
okay,
Cool
okay,
J, and so
okay.
a lot of break dancing. So it
I
was
need
different.
love. I
It
need
was different.
love.
I need love,
Oh,
yeah. Well, he was a player though. El Cujo was a big old player, you know, but it was disguised behind the music as something else. But yeah, so I wasn't even doing drugs at 17. I didn't drink or smoke weed till I was like, I think I smoked weed at 15, but I didn't continue, and I didn't like alcohol, so I wasn't doing any kind of drugs or anything. It's just that just the opportunity to drive that across the border and make money. And at that time, I don't remember. It was probably like $2,000, you know. And I was 17, and I got convinced. They convinced me. They're like, you know, it's easy to do, and it's gonna be hidden. Don't worry about it. You can. And I made it, you know. And one car, one trip became, you know, two, three, four later. So at that, I, you know, criminal. I joined the National Guard at 8 years. So that was that was a good experience, you know. So, but I was still getting in trouble, you know. Around 20 years old, when I was 20, I had already crossed cars. I already had changed from crossing marijuana to crossing cocaine. So I graduated, kind of thing, you know. Like if somebody offered that job, they knew that I was already doing weed. They're like, okay, well, you got experience. You want to handle this? I'm like, yeah, I'll handle it. So I started taking that to LA when I was around in my 20s, early 20s.
so
So
from Mexico to LA.
stupid, you know, because if I would have gotten caught, especially with coke, it would have been really, really bad. And
So that was
um,
so you were doing the shipments from Mexico to LA, right?
yeah,
And the weed, you were taking it from Mexico to LA too.
yeah,
Mm, okay,
yeah, yeah, everything was LA. Yeah, in the beginning, it was LA.
okay.
Um, so yeah, so at 20 years old, after the guard, I get in some trouble and we were out drinking. By this time, I'm already drinking. I'm already using coke, especially when I'm taking coke up there. You know, once we get it delivered, the paisas there were like, hey, well, they got to open it up and try it out, you know. So
Hmm.
they would offer me, so hey, you want some? I'm like, heck yeah. So I would return loaded, bro, all the time with coke in my, you know, they give me a little bit, and so that started my me using cocaine when I started taking those trips up there. Um, and that turned into a habit that was almost always partying and using coke.
So you were
Until
20
I
when you started. So you were 20 when you started doing that.
got
Hello, hello.
in some trouble I don't know if you can hear me.
Could you hear
I can
me?
see, I can hear you, bro.
Hey, bro. You know what? I think I'm gonna. I do whatever. We just meet up, man, because the connection is like. Well, it's up to you. I'm just saying because the connections are really really bad. I got your message right here, messenger. Hello, could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
I
you.
can't. Okay,
Can you-
cool, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know. Yeah, because when I talk, I can hear the little my the where my picture goes. I can see it move up and down when I'm speaking, but you couldn't hear me for some reason. I don't know.
right. Well, hopefully the people could hear you. I mean,
Okay.
we're
So
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so at 20 years old, I end up going to prison. Um, some guys ended up shooting at us, and so we ended up go get some guns and go back at them and start shooting them up, and so that ended me in prison. I ended up going 2 years to prison. That was the first time I ever went to prison. I've never gotten in trouble before that time. I've never got caught with any of the stuff when as a kid. I never got caught with weed or coke or nothing. Just that one time, I had to do 2 years in prison. Um,
That's because you got into an altercation. You said right.
yeah, yeah, shooting at altercation.
Man, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that time that I went to prison, that's when I started. That's the first time that I ever met God. Like really met God because I grew up Catholic, and I did my first communion with my grandma would take me to church. I did my first communion, and I learned all the Catholic ways. But when I went to prison, there was a Bible in my cell, and I started reading it, and that's when I started knowing who God really was. And that was actually the first time that I ever accepted Christ into my heart in prison, in that jail cell.
So how old were you?
I was around 20.
Oh man, so once you started moving that coke, right, that same year you got arrested.
Probably somewhere around there, a year or two, give or take. I got my times all messed up, bro. But
Okay, so you were like 22 then.
probably somewhere around there. Yeah, it was less than 20. No, it was less than. I was around 20, 21 or something. 20,
Okay,
21 when I went to prison.
okay.
It was just that everything happened so fast, bro. Like my whole life has been fast. Always been fast, and um, it's never been at ease. Like I'm always moving. I'm always here and there. I was always doing stuff, and so so that's when I first met God. But then I got out of prison, and I went to church for a little bit, but then I stopped going. I wouldn't go to church no more. So I got away from God, and I continued doing stuff. I continued with moving drugs, and then I started meeting different people, different kinds of jobs, because growing up here in the border, you got access to every illegal activity that comes across the border. We got access, you know, most of the people here that get involved are involved because it's so easy. Like we get all the illegal activities. Anything that comes across that border, we're here to catch it. We're the first one to get a hold of it. So I was into, illegal aliens. All that started coming in as well, not just drugs, but human trafficking. Um, and yeah, so I did a lot of that stuff, man. I did so much. Like all I knew was how to be a criminal. I was on both sides of the border. I would go work in Mexico. I would work here. I would work in Tijuana. I would work in Mexicali, San Diego. So years later is when bigger work started coming in. I guess I was around maybe 17 years ago. I don't know how long, whatever, 16 to like 17 years ago, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Okay.
when that was, but that was what, 2006, 2005. Around 2005
Okay.
is when I moved to San Diego, and since I already was like pretty much
Connected.
yeah, I was already connected and stuff. So in Tijuana, I met some other people, and they needed people to take work up to like the East Coast,
Man, okay. So you're
and
you're doing some big stuff.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I was, man, and for me, all that was exciting because at that time, like I said, I don't glorify it. I don't none of that because it's not the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, you're fortunate that you. I mean, you're fortunate that you're still alive. That's for sure.
Man, you don't even know, bro. Like it's I know that. I know that. Not only am I
Right.
fortunate, am I blessed to still be alive, but I should be either dead or I should be in prison still serving life. I should be uh you know in the streets homeless talking to myself.
Man.
I went through all that already, towards the end of everything. But
Mm.
in 2006, 2006 is when 2005 is when I started doing bigger things, and
Hmm.
it involved me traveling a lot to the East Coast constantly for like 2 years, every
So
month.
so the okay. So you started like locally, right? And then
Uh,
2006. But did you start off still in Mexico and then you went across
no,
the
I wasn't
nation?
doing that no more. Like I
Okay.
once I knew what I was doing and stuff, like I no longer had to do it myself. I would get somebody else to do it. Like
Oh, okay.
if people needed work to be brought or picked up or delivered or taken or babysit or whatever it was. Now I could just get other people to do it, so I wasn't really getting involved myself. But I
Oh,
mean, I
wow.
was,
Okay.
but not me actually behind the wheel. If anything, later it became more like, okay, you bring it over here, and I'll take it from here. Like
Mm.
I'm not doing Mexico to here no more. But if you can get it here, I'll get it to wherever you want it. And so that's how it
Mm.
was.
Okay. Wow. So tell us a little bit more about your, when you started going to driving across the nation.
Yeah, well, that was a very. I mean, it was at the time. I mean, even now, it's exciting. Like I went to a lot of different places. I met a lot of different people. I've been all over the United States, and pretty much I drove there. So that's even to me, that's even. It was more exciting that I drove to all these places. I would drive to Tampa, Florida. I would drive to Atlanta, Georgia. I would drive to New York. I would drive to Minnesota. I drove to Oaxaca one time from TJ. So I was like driving everywhere, bro, everywhere and in between. And at that time, I loved it. I love driving. I love going out there. But I was taking large amounts. I don't want to like really say, but it was like a lot, a lot. It was especially marijuana. Like I taking to the East Coast, we're talking, yeah, I don't want like a lot, a
So,
lot.
so you were, I mean, you had nice cars, Did you have a family? Did you,
I had my Yeah, I was married. I had my family. I had my kids. I had just married myself for the second time. Um, and so with that money, with all that money came. I used to love going to strip clubs. So I would go to strip clubs all over the country and in Mexico and here and just spend money. I would go to the malls. I could buy whatever I wanted. And the people that I worked for, I mean, they had more money, so they were always paying for everything everywhere we went. We flew places. We flew places in Mexico. Our boss took us to watch the football games in Mexico. The las Chivas con el América. ¿Cómo le llaman?
it's el, what is it? It's
It has a name.
like the rivalry they
Yeah,
have
it's
going on.
like a very rival. Yeah, so they
Yeah.
have that every year or something. My boss, I remember, he used to take us. Me personally, I never went. He did invite us, but the reason why I never went was because he gave me an option. It's like, hey, you guys, what do they call it? Not the Mundial. It's like el Clásico. They call it el Clásico. So he would be like, hey,
Okay.
who wants to go to Clásico? We're gonna go next month, and everybody's like, yeah, yeah. And he would pay for all the everything, hotel, food, airplane ticket. But he was like, but there's also a job to Florida. So I would jump on the work. I didn't. I wouldn't go. I would just like, I'll take that trip. So I ended up going, but I mean, the opportunity was there. But I did fly to many other places with them, and yeah, at the time, I mean, it seemed like the fun thing to do, but in reality, like living ungodly and like if I would have died at any time like now that I believe in God and I believe in heaven and hell. I believe in the afterlife. We're gonna all of us are gonna live forever. Some of us are gonna go to hell, which I'm not, but many are. And so I believe in all that. And I know that if I would have died at any time during those times when I was living like that, like a criminal, like you know, cheating on my wife, sleeping around with women, using drugs, drinking, and like I would have gone to hell. I didn't have God in my heart. I was just living the life of the cartels of famous people, meeting famous people, traveling everywhere. I mean, I was able to buy property in Mexico. I bought a couple houses in Mexico at the time. I had cars, nice big trucks, and but then with that life later is when meth addiction came into the picture, and that's when everything went downhill. Like all that stuff, all the houses, all the properties, all
Hey,
I
so how did that happen, man? So it seems like you didn't have an addiction until you started doing meth.
yeah.
Like how
So
did that? Did you start
I had
pushing it too, or what?
no, what no later I did, but at first it was more like in the Imperial Valley there was not much methamphetamine yet, and I'm talking about man, this was before 2006. I had already tasted meth, but it was by mistake. I went to San Diego. I asked some people I wanted an 8 ball of Coke, and I hit up somebody, and they're like, "Yeah, here's an 8 ball." And I grabbed it, picked it up, and we were driving back home. And as we were in the car driving back to El Centro to Calexico, we took out the sack and we all do. I'm the first one to do it, and it started burning my nose. I was like, "Ah, what the heck is this?" So I called my buddy and I told him, "Hey, bro, what the heck is this that you gave me?" So he's like, "Oh, that's crystal meth, bro." I'm like, "No, I didn't want that. Like I wanted Coke." So that is how I started using meth the first time was by a mistake of sack, and we ended up doing it because we didn't have anything else. We were like, "Hey, we might as well use it," and that right there turned into the first time that I got addicted. I got addicted to meth before the 2006. I want to say maybe, man, I was already in my 20s, in my late 20s, but I stopped. I stopped using meth for 8 years, and then when I started again after I made all that money, um, I started using meth by I had to move back to El Centro because the work something happened with our work that people started getting busted, so I had to leave and I went back to Mexico. I moved to Mexico, but I live in Mexicali. So I went from living in San Diego doing all that, and I moved back to Imperial County to Mexicali to my house. And so I had to find a way to make money. So I first I started just with weed and stuff, moving it across the border and stuff. But then one day I remember I was working at my house on the roof, and my brother-in-law he was selling meth already. So I was like, "Hey, cuñado, let me get a little bit, man. Like let me get a little bit of that meth so I can work hard on the roof. Quiero echarle ganas, I wanted it because I already knew that meth would put me fast to work." So he was like, "Nah, cuñado, don't you're gonna get sprung on it." I'm like, "Nah, I'm not, bro. Just let me get some. I'm not gonna get sprung. I just want just for right now, so I can work on the roof all day, nonstop." And that, bro, turned into an addiction of 8 years. Um, I didn't stop. The next day, I went back to him and asked him for more. I'm like, "Hey, dude, let me get all," and that turned into an everyday addiction of 8 years. That pretty much.
Bro, it was just an excuse, right? Because you wanted to do it, that you didn't really want it to work.
That was an
You know?
excuse, yeah, that I was gonna do it just so I can work a little harder on the roof, because
Yeah,
supposedly that thing gives you power, energy, and I was like, I need it right now. I'm tired.
yeah.
and not believing, because he told me, hey, you're gonna get hooked, bro. I'm not gonna get hooked. How am I gonna get hooked if I just want it for right now?
Mm.
I got hooked, bro. I got hooked. I wanted more the next day, the next week, and that turned into an addiction that a year later I left my house for a whole
Wow.
year. I was married. I left my wife. I left
Wow.
my mom. I left my boss had fronted me dope. I just disappeared from everybody, and I went to the streets, bro. I was out in the streets for a whole year.
Wow.
I lost track of time. I abandoned my family, and I just wanted to get high, and I had money to do it. So I started selling my properties. I started getting in trouble in Calexico, going to jail, and then I started, yeah, and before that, when I started working on the roof, I asked my people for meth, and they fronted me. They fronted me a couple pounds, so I had it, I had it on me. So that's when I disappeared for a whole year. Like I already had a pound of meth on me.
And what, that
So,
lasts you for a long time or what?
well, I would just flip it. I would get more. I could get rid
Oh,
of it. I
okay.
would party. I would party. I would just get everybody high. I would be selling it. Then I would flip it, get some more, and it just went from that. But then I started becoming non-functioning. I started losing everything. I sold my house. I opened up a tire shop in El Centro, and that went down the drain because I was already becoming very non-functioning. Like towards the end of my addiction, once I had sold the house, and then once I sold my lots, and I only had the tire shop, and I had to leave the tire shop too because the city was coming down on me, and I was gonna get arrested for different things that I didn't have permits. I never changed the tire shop to my name. I was doing everything illegal. I wasn't even thinking, just selling dope and smoking dope, and I ended up losing the tire shop. So any last money that I had from any of the money I made, I lost it all. I ended up not having anything and just living in the streets. I became homeless. I even dumpster dive. I was dumpster diving at the end of my addiction just so I can go recycle and get money to rent a room, get money to buy some more dope, and just start getting crazy.
Hey, bro, did you actually like? So, tell us about what was that experience like of like sleeping on the street, man?
Well, I mean, since I slept probably in a park like once or twice, and I had a car, so I would sleep in my car. Or I was homeless, but I would hustle enough money and every day to rent a room. Sometimes I had enough money to rent a room for 3 days. Sometimes I got kicked out of the hotel and I had to go find ways, and I would find a way to make money, flip it, and then rent a room and go back inside a room. So I was homeless, but I was constantly renting hotel rooms. So, and I was still doing a little bit of jobs here and there, so it paid for my hotel room to stay. I had a girlfriend at the time who was addicted too, and so we would both hustle and rent a room. But I mean, there was times when we couldn't even rent a room, so I had to go sleep in the park. But those were lesser times. Sometimes I didn't even sleep, so I would not sleep for 4, 5, 6 days. So during those 5, 6 days, I'm not in a hotel, but I may be in one house. Later on that night, I go somewhere else. I'm still awake. In the morning, I go to another house. So I was constantly just homeless without a house. But since I was high and not sleeping at all, I was just different places all the time. I can be in Mexicali 1 hour. I'll be in El Centro in the nighttime. I'll be back in Calexico in the morning. I'll be in Mexicali at night. I'll be in, just like constant moving, not sleeping. But there was times when those times that I was out in the streets towards the end of my addiction that I would like I wouldn't sometimes I wouldn't even shower. My feet would stink. I'd probably be walking around the same socks 3, 4 days. My feet were stinking. I probably asked somebody, "Hey, can I shower at your house?" I would shower and then get on out again. I would stay with my mom. Mom would open her doors to me, but there was times when I was just too much. Sometimes she would kick me out. I had my son with me, so I had to take my son with me, and we were both sleeping in my Explorer. He was like, my son was like 5, 6, 7 years old, and he was already witnessing me being an addict. He witnessed me selling drugs. He witnessed the police breaking down our door and coming in and arresting me and taking me or taking my brother a couple times. He witnessed that at a young age, rifles pointing in his face. So I put my family through a lot. I really, so that's why it might have sounded like fun, like, oh, I was making money. But you know what? At the end, bro, like I was destroying my family little by little, and I was destroying my own family. I was destroying other families by selling and drugs and moving drugs and taking drugs places. So I wasn't really doing any good to society. I was bad. I was bad, bro. All I wanted to, was make money. At the end of my addiction, I was still trying, but then it all led to where at the end, 8 years ago, I couldn't even, like, I was a non-function. I couldn't even try to hustle a dime bag. Like it would be impossible to me to even get a dime sack if my life depended on it. Like for some reason, everything was closing in on me. Like every other, I couldn't make anything happen. So that's when it started getting really bad. Like, and then being under the influence of methamphetamine, marijuana, it also, and living amongst all these people, all these, like there's a spiritual world, right? People, don't talk about it, or some don't know, but we live in a spiritual world that we can't see. It's angels and demons and all that. So when I was under the influence of that drugs and hanging around all the people I used to hang around with, prostitutes, killers, drug addicts, all kinds of, just people that just did dirt, bro. So behind all that is a demonic world. So I witnessed a lot of that demonic world because I was under the influence, and I already knew about the Bible as well. So I was able to discern a lot of demonic activity that was happening wherever I was at, and that was scary. That was some scary moments because I even experienced a time when it was my turn to die. So I was attacked by all kinds of ways spiritually. I was going crazy just by the way that they attacked me, the demonic through different people, different times, and it was crazy, bro. I had people start dying, like I knew it was my turn. I showed up to one place, and I felt that at that moment the death was after me, so I had to leave that place. I had to, like, no, I'm not gonna stick around because I know that I'm gonna die. Something's gonna happen. Something's gonna cause something to happen that I'm the one that's gonna die. So I left. Then the next day I would find out, hey, remember you showed up that day? Yeah, well, the dude that was there, bro, when he left over there, they shot him over there in El Centro. The cops shot him. I'm like, oh, dang. Later on, I felt the same presence of death, and I left, and somebody else, hey, bro, remember that dude? He left, bro. He was in Mexicali. They ran over him. He ran the street. They didn't see him. He died. I'm like, oh, dang. And then another one, bro, like that. Hey, remember that dude? He overdosed. I'm like, oh, dang. So it was constant, bro. Like towards the end, death was after me, and I saw it, how it was happening to other people the same night that I felt that it was going to happen to me, that I started getting scared. Bro. I was like, I knew that I was next. I'm like, I already knew that I walked away from God, and I knew that I was never talking to these people about Jesus. Instead, I was getting them high, or I was, fronting them drugs, but I never talked to nobody about God, and they were dying. And I was like, man, their blood is going to be in my hands because I'm not warning them about hell. I'm not telling them about Jesus Christ. So I knew that if I died, I was going to go to hell. And that's when I started crying out to God, bro. Like, I would listen to some Christian hip hop at the time. That was I don't know how that playlist of Christian rap was on my music, because I would be on a bicycle with my little Bluetooth speaker, my backpack on the back, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, driving by behind an alley up to no good, and listening to Tupac, listening to Too Short, NWA, and then all of a sudden, here comes a playlist of a Christian rapper whose name is Seven. He's one of my favorites. I don't know how that playlist was on my speaker, but it played, and that was, he would talk about God and about his testimony, how he used to be. So when I used to hear this music, that was the only connection I had with God, because I was not going to church, I was not praying. But when I heard that music, I would be in touch with God, and that was the only time I talked to him. And because of that, I think is what kept me sane, because I was already losing my mind, talking to myself, you know, talking to these demons, scared, you know. So that was the only time, bro. So that's the times I cried out to God, and I told him, you know what, I don't want this life no more. I'm tired of it. I see the death that's coming to me, and I don't want to die yet. My son needs me, you know, and so I started crying out to God, and a little bit later after that, CPS took my son. They came to my house. The SIT team came to my house. They went in, guns, rifles, everything, assault rifles. There was illegal aliens in the house, and so they took my son, and they actually they let him there, but the next day they went to school for him. And I remember they went to my house. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna go pick up your son, but we'll bring him back." So they went to school, but they didn't bring him back, bro. They took him, and that right there was what, like, damn, I gotta stop this. Like, I'm gonna lose my son. My son's was with me since he was 5, since he was 4. He was already around 7 or so, or 8, and so yeah, man, I had to go to um, I had to go to parenting classes, and I had to test clean, and they were gonna give me my son back. But a whole year passed by. I used to go to parenting classes. I was high, I was sweating, I was late, and so testing dirty. So when the year was getting closer, they were telling me, you know what, by the end of next month, if you're not haven't completed none of these programs, you're gonna lose your son, and he's gonna go out for adoption. So I'm like, dang. So I really cried out to God, and I told him I needed help. I talked to the people there. I told him I need a home. I can't stop on my own. You guys are telling me to test clean, but I can't. I'm still using. So they ended up sending me to rehab. I grabbed it. I went to rehab. It took a minute. I was still being a knucklehead. I got kicked out of like 3 different rehabs till I finally finished one. And this was in 2008, I believe. And I finished rehab, and I got my son back. And as a matter of fact, he lives with me right now. He's 16. I'm a single father, and he's still with me. Praise God. You know that I thank God for all the times that I didn't die, for all the times that I wasn't in prison. I've been in high speed chases. I got a high speed chase from El Centro to Calexico, 5 cops chasing me. I was able to get away from the high speed chase. I went to Mexico. I got away from it. I've been stabbed. I got a scar by my neck. That's how close one of the cuts came to my neck. I've been shot at. Never hit, but I've been shot at. I've been in prison in Mexico for maybe a couple of weeks, but I got bailed out. Um, I've seen so much stuff, you know, a lot of stuff that I've seen that I don't really want to say, but yeah. So I could say that God has been with me this whole time, and he, at first, I thought it was me. I thought I was bad. I thought I was a bad dude. I thought I was a super criminal, that I would be able to get away with stuff, trafficking tons of drugs. And I'm like literal tons, not just like saying it, but yeah, and millions of dollars in cash that would, you know, change from my hands to others. And so I know what God saved me from. I know that I should be in prison still. I know that I should actually be dead. I know that my mind you know, I should be local because of all how much drugs I used to do. But still, God had a plan. You know, God had a plan that I didn't know about, and here I am now. You know, He's still working in me. I'm 8 years clean. I haven't used it any meth. In this 8 years, I probably relapsed twice for like a weekend. In the last 8 years, but I right away I straightened out. I was like, nah, man, this is not what I want. So I went to my pastor. He prayed for me, and I stopped, and I haven't looked back ever since then. Like I still struggle now financially or whatever, but my mind is not criminal anymore. I used to, like, automatically I would just, okay, what can I do? How I would call up people. Hey, what I could call somebody from Sinaloa, or I could call somebody from Michoacan, or I could call somebody, a pollero or a motero or whatever. Hey, you guys got any work? And if I didn't do it, I would get somebody else to do it. But I still got cut. I still got money. So there's ways of making money illegally that are easy for me because that's all I knew. But now I prefer not to work on none of that stuff. I don't. God provides for me right now. I got food. Sometimes I get jobs here and there, but I go to school now full time. I'm going to Imperial Valley College. I've been going for the last 2 years. I took other classes online during the COVID. So I've been doing nothing but positive the last 8 years, going to church, serving in the community, serving in my church as much as possible. Try to get drug addicts off the streets. That's my one of my main things that I'm focused on. Like I want to help people out. I want to get people off of the streets into rehab, and most of all to know God. Like that's the primary thing. People to know who God is, to accept His salvation, because that's the most important decision that anybody here on earth can make is to accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. And many people don't do that, but um, they should, especially now with the days that we're living in now. We're in the last days, bro. We're in the last days of the world that we've been knowing. Everything is changing. Everything in our government, and it's crazy. So now more than ever is when people need to come to know Christ. And so I like getting involved in stuff like that and the community. Now that I'm doing stuff like I've done a few concerts that I've organized. I've talked to you about those. And yeah.
And so, what was the process like, man, of kicking the habit? Was it like how difficult was that?
Well, I mean, it was, and the thing is that it was meth. For heroin addicts, it's even worse. And now that fentanyl is here, it's even worse too. Because I've done heroin. I did heroin, but it wasn't my drug of choice, so I stopped using it. But with meth, um, since I loved it so much, it was hard. I could try to stop, but then I would feel tired, or I would feel anxious. I would feel like, I just want to go do one fix. So I would end up doing it again, and I wouldn't stop. Even when they took my son, I couldn't stop using it. It took me a year to finally, till they told me, hey, that's it. He's going out for adoption, for me to really stop. And I mean, and so I just had to sleep it off. It took me a week or two to sleep every day and not to use, and then I went to Crash in San Diego. I went to Crash. I got kicked out in 1 month. Then I went to New Creations in El Centro. I was going to do 6 months there. I did 5. I got kicked out. And then I went back to Crash again, and I finished that one barely. But it took over a year of different homes for me to like really like lose the how do you say, like the urge of wanting to use it. Like it took just a few weeks, a couple of months. And Crash was a behavioral modification program, so it dealt with all kinds of issues in life, why we're addicted and how we can do to prevent it. And so there was a lot of classes that I took there, and then plus I was reading my Bible while I was there. I was going to church, and my strength has been God. God has been my strength to continue forward, and not look back. But yeah, like I didn't even go through, when you're on meth, you don't really go through like withdrawals, like meth addicts. I mean, like heroin addicts, or like fentanyl addicts. That's really hard to kick. It's possible, but I think it takes God to be by your side, but also for something like heroin and fentanyl, I think that a lot of people, they benefit from medical detox. It has to be medical detox, because you go through withdrawals that you feel you're gonna die. Some might even die. With meth, it's not the same. With meth, you just feel like you're so tired, you have no energy at all. You're like super tired. You just want to go to sleep. You wake up, you're hungry, you eat, and then you go back to sleep again for a whole day. And then you wake up, you eat, use the bathroom, and then go to sleep again for another, 20 hours, and then wake up, eat, go to sleep. So that's pretty much what I had to do for the first couple of weeks. Just sleep and eat, sleep and eat, sleep and eat. But not really any like pains or nothing. Heroin, you feel like you're gonna die. It's bad. Heroin withdrawals are very bad. Alcohol withdrawals is even worse. Alcohol, people who withdraw from alcohol, those die. Those people can die like really. It's really bad. They got to be treated in a hospital or something like that. An alcoholic to recover and go through withdrawal is the worst. It's worse than heroin.
Hmm. Is there any last words before we cut it short? That you would like to share, and anything that you think it's important for people to know?
Well,
I know that you're doing that concert. That you're doing that concert that you wanted to promote.
yeah. So we have a concert. I don't know if you'll be able to put the flyer, but we have a
Um.
concert that I worked on.
Okay.
I organized it. Since like I said, rap music was one way that I got back to connected to God. So now that I'm serving God, I don't listen to rap. No, I still listen to rap, but I don't listen to worldly rap. I listen to corridos, to banda, but it's all Christian corridos. It's all Christian rap in Spanish and English. I started meeting friends, that are rappers and Christian rappers. And I've in the last year I've probably organized two concerts, but the one I'm working now, it's called Real Love Community Festival, and it's gonna be here in Brawley. We're bringing rappers, Christian rappers from Texas. We're flying them in from Texas, from Kingdom Music, Antoine Hill and Brandon Trejo, uh, and he's related to Brian Trejo. He was gonna come, but because of his health, he had to cancel. We had to change to a different day. So we decided that we're gonna keep with this festival, and we're gonna bring two other rappers. So we got rappers from Tijuana that are coming in. We got rappers from local rappers from right here, from San Diego. We got Mike Servin coming in from Modesto, California, and it's gonna be a great event. It's gonna be from 1:30 to 8:30 at night. So it's like 7 hours long on Friday the 21st here in Brawley. It's gonna be right across the it's an empty lot that's right across from Barbara Worth Junior High, and so we're gonna have graffiti artists show their skills right there painting. We're gonna have jumpers for the kids. We're gonna have vendors. Flash Dogs is gonna be selling hot dogs that day. Brawley Feed the Need is gonna be also selling some plates, some foods and stuff. We're gonna have T-shirt sales, merchandise from the guys that are selling stuff. Face painting for the kids. We're gonna have shaved eyes for the kids. I think like 100 kids are gonna get free shaved eyes. We're gonna have that big trailer that has those video games that they go inside and kids play inside that big old truck, like a game truck. We're gonna have that there too. It's gonna be free for the kids. They're gonna be playing, uh, and yeah, it's gonna be a great event. We got like 7 different rappers, bro, and a worship team, collective movement right here from Imperial County, and yeah, it's gonna be a great time for anybody. Everybody's invited. It's free. It's free. If people all the way from the Slab City all the way to Mexicali can go. Come and have some fun. Because I know you got a Slab City channel, so if there's anybody out there from Slab City listening, come on down, man. Have some fun out here. Listen to some good music. There's gonna be people sharing their testimonies. I'm not sure if I'm gonna share mine. I should probably, but maybe it'll be short. Um, and yeah, now like I went from all that. I used to do stuff for the world. I used to, deliver drugs for the cartels. I used to do all that kind of stuff. Now I want to do it for God. So God has been using me, and to bring this concert to Imperial Valley. I used to bring drugs to Imperial Valley. Now I want to bring God and share the love of God to everybody, and tell everybody who's out there struggling with life, whether it be with addiction, whether it be with family problems, whatever it is, God can heal every single problem there is. That God can heal pains, God can heal families, addictions, hurts, and He forgives sin, which is the most, very important. Like I said earlier, hell is real, and so is heaven. And God is giving us an opportunity to live eternally with Him if we accept Him as our Lord and Savior. And that's why we're bringing this concert, like to bring God to people that they may come to know Him. And yeah. So if anybody wants to talk, and if anybody wants to know more about God, has questions about what it means to be saved, they can reach out to me. The name Joe Cross Hoods. You can find me on Facebook as Joe Cross Hoods, and send me a message, request me. And if you're and anybody who's out there listening, who's got a loved one or who's an addict themselves, maybe somebody's an addict and they're tired and they want to go somewhere, I can try to help you get into a home, whether it be medical detox or whether it be a Christian home here in the Valley. We can plug you in. And but the person has to want to. If they don't want to, then it's not going to happen. But if people really want to do it, like I did at some point, I really called out to God and I told him to help me, and I gave it my all, bro. And I haven't looked back. So as long as you get connected and plugged in with God, and you have ganas, if you really want to get well, if you whatever you're going through, God will see you through it the whole time.
All right, bro. Go ahead and send me the flyer again, and I'll post it in my community tab. Thanks for joining, man. And if you ever want to come back on and share share another story or more information with
man,
us.
I got stories, bro. Every I trip out because everywhere I turn here in Mexicali, the Valley, every time I turn a new street or anywhere, I'm like, I remember something that went on there. Oh, I remember this happened here. I remember that happened over there. I got stories, bro. But the most important story is, like they say, it's his story.
Right.
His story. That is God, Jesus Christ. That's the most important. What he did, how he changed a person. How I used to be before, that all I cared about was myself, about money, about drugs, about how to, just being a criminal mindset, to now doing things for the community, wanting to do stuff with the youth, helping them get out of drugs, helping them not get involved into gang banging. They don't have to go through none of that. They don't have to gang bang. People be losing family members, lives, just because they want to live that lifestyle of music. Music influences a lot of people. So hip hop and corridos right now are the thing. They influence you to want to be like them, supposedly, like all these fake rappers that talk about gangbanging, or they talk about bling bling, and they're not even living that life. But then all the youngsters out here, everybody's listening to Bad Bunny, all that stupid music, really, bro. And they want to live that lifestyle like the cartels. Oh, I want to be like Chapo, or I want to be like. And look where Chapo's at. He's in prison for life, bro. He ain't never getting out. He never got it. So what kind of hero is that, And so that's why I like getting involved with the music, bro. With Christian rap, there's more positive. Give the people a different type of music to listen to, so that they won't get influenced into wanting to live that lifestyle and end up in prison.
All right then, bro. Thank you for your time, man. Thank you for
giving me a chance to share this. Hopefully it does something with somebody, man. Somebody touches somebody's heart, or some way, a good way.
Yeah. Mr. Crichton says that was an awesome story. Thank you. Then TP Secret says hardest thing for addicts to do is to finally realize that they have a problem. Second hardest thing for addicts to do is attempt to seek help. The third hardest thing for addicts to do is seek help after relapse.
Yeah, but it's all there. It's all there. But like you said, the hardest thing, the most important thing is that addict needs to want it. He has to want it, or she. As much as family members want to help, as much, if that person ain't ready, it ain't gonna happen. But there's help. There is ways. There's people like myself that would go out of my way to help somebody if they really wanted it. And if I can help them get into a rehab in San Diego or here, and if I have to take them, I will. If they're really serious about it, I'll get, and I'll help them get all the medication, they have to go through the county, through the city, get on some medication. They can go to San Diego to detox facilities, and they'll continue to give them the medication until they get clean. And then they treat them there for a few months, and they're out to a sober living home, and it's off to sober living, But if you have to grab onto Jesus Christ the whole way on that journey of being sober, like NA and AA, they talk about a higher power, and the highest power is God. The highest power is Jesus Christ. He's the highest power. He's not a higher power. He's the highest power. So with him, grabbing onto him, it is possible, and it's very doable, bro. I'm doing it. I know people that are doing it. So, yeah.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
All right, bro. God bless you. Thank you.